Hello, I'm Bill Hutchins. Welcome to a special edition of Global Kingston's The Year in Review.
And I'm Shauna Cunningham. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll be counting down the top stories making headlines across our region in 2020.
We have lots of ground to cover, from a tent city eviction and, of course, the impact of COVID-19.
We begin our top 5 countdown with a local rail blockade that caused disruptions across the country. 2020 was only a few weeks old when Bay of Quinte Mohawks set up a blockade on the main CN rail line near Tyendinaga territory to support hereditary chiefs in a pipeline dispute in BC. Via trains and freight traffic ground to a halt for several weeks. Demonstrators stood their ground until police moved in to break it up in late February. But even then, the protests continued. Jennifer Bassa covered the tense standoff.
2 days after the OPP raided a protest camp in Tyendinaga, a second camp down the tracks has grown significantly. And with trains up and running, Indigenous protesters tried to stop them in their tracks. This video posted by some of the protesters Wednesday morning. They lit fires along the tracks as a train rolled by. Protesters even stepped in front of one train, stepping out of the way once they saw the train wasn't stopping. Rocks and branches were also thrown, hitting the train's windows. The Tyendinaga Mohawk protests very much still alive, in support of the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs. Opposed to a natural gas link pipeline in northern BC, protesters had camped out in solidarity along the tracks here for more than 2 weeks, not allowing any trains to go through, before OPP raided that camp Monday and made arrests. With this second camp growing larger, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Transportation Minister Mark Garneau are also responding.
Oh, this was an extremely reckless act. I saw the video this morning, and something that not only put in danger the life of the people who were actually lighting this fire under a moving train, but also could have been very dangerous for many other people, because what if this train was carrying dangerous materials that could have ignited.
Just before 6, a vehicle fully engulfed in flames was found on the tracks at Shannonville Road, just 10 kilometers west of where the protesters attempted to interfere with freight trains on Wednesday. OPP remain on the north side of the tracks. South of the tracks is Tyendinaga Mohawk territory, where OPP don't have jurisdiction right now. A bit of a stalemate as the country watches what happens next. Jennifer Bassa, Global News, Tyendinaga.
There were many other newsworthy stories that happened in our region during the past year. 2020 also brought us rotating teacher strikes and a local MP questioning Canada's top public health official over her handling of the COVID pandemic. Here's a look.
Is a statement to the gravity of the situation.
Local teachers resumed their rotating strikes as the new year began, fighting the Ford government for new contracts. The strike soon gave way to the pandemic that closed schools anyway, and the contract disputes were quietly resolved in the spring.
Lockdown situation to stay in our staterooms.
The first sign that COVID was heading this way, the virus spread like wildfire on a cruise ship in late February, where former MPP John Gerritsen and his wife got sick. They and others were airlifted to a quarantine center at CFB Trenton. And then the panic buying set in, shoppers stockpiling toilet paper, hand sanitizer, and other essentials. As the pandemic months dragged on, frustration and mistrust of government began to boil to the surface.
We are protesting these unwarranted, unjustified, and unlawful orders by Doug Ford.
Local MPP Randy Hillier staging anti-mask rallies outside Queen's Park, including this one that saw him charged. He faces a minimum $10,000 fine, even jail time, when his case heads to court in the new year. Local MP Derek Sloan made an unsuccessful bid to lead the federal Conservative Party, but that wasn't his only move that made national headlines. The rookie MP criticized Canada's top public health official, Dr. Theresa Tam, for her handling of the pandemic.
Does she work for Canada or for China?
I don't let noise sort of detract me.
Sloan remained in the Tory caucus but lost his leadership bid. Kingston's attempt to break free of province-wide restrictions and have more regional autonomy was initially rejected by the Premier.
We can't have people going rogue per se.
To be clear, this is not about anyone going rogue.
The government later changed its mind, adopting a more regional approach to managing the pandemic. Protests against Sir John A. Macdonald's legacy gathered strength across the country. A statue came down in Montreal, and local critics wanted the same in this region. County Council decided to hold off on removing its statue in Picton for more study. Kingston adopting a similar move to explore the first Prime Minister's complex legacy and treatment of Indigenous people.
What people are asking for is that we would add to history and not take away from it. And so we don't have any plans to remove the statue.
Queen's University took the most decisive route, removing Sir John A.'s name from its law school. In the courts, a Quebec truck driver accused of plowing full speed into a traffic backup on the 401 near Highway 15 in 2017 that killed 3 members of a Kingston family and a friend of that family was found guilty of criminal negligence charges. Dunhill Tabano has yet to be sentenced. On a West Kingston street in late October, 1 student was killed and 5 others injured following a crash on Bay Ridge Drive. Police said 2 cars were traveling at a high speed when they crashed onto airport property. 16-year-old Scott Legg was later remembered as a fun-loving student at Frontenac, while classmates gathered for a vigil and police charged both 17-year-old drivers. Kingston's attempt to support local businesses by restricting traffic on some downtown streets backfired just days after launching. Barriers designed to narrow the streets and make more room for street shopping were removed after business complaints they were too disruptive. Ontario's experiment with blue license plates faded quietly into the night after a tweet from a Kingston cop. Sergeant Koopman's post of virtually unreadable at night forced the province to scrap the plates and go back with the familiar blue and white design. And Kingston's new $39 million high school finally opened its doors in mid-December following COVID construction delays. The new facility also spelled the end of an era as the 225-year-old KCVI closed for good.
Stay with us as we continue our countdown of the top stories in our year in review. As seniors were forced to isolate from loved ones for months, family members found other ways to connect with them.
Welcome back as we continue our countdown of the top stories making headlines in our region in 2020. Shauna?
Bill, 3 words impacted our lives in the past year and will continue to resonate for years to come. Black Lives Matter came to symbolize justice, healing, and freedom to Black people across the globe. And the social movement touched many people in this region too. Neil McCartney covered a solidarity vigil in Kingston in June where participants said racism isn't just a problem in the United States.
Hundreds of people gathered in Kingston for a Black Lives Matter vigil to acknowledge and mourn the lives lost to anti-Black racism and to demand justice. The peaceful rally in McBurney Park, organized after a week of riots across the U.S. following the death of George Floyd. The 46-year-old black man was killed in Minneapolis after a white police officer kneeled on his neck during an arrest, caught on cell phone video. There have also been many peaceful demonstrations and vigils like this one across the U.S. and Canada. Local organizers recited the names of Black, Indigenous, and peoples of color who've been victims of police brutality in this country and observed a moment of silence.
Not one more Tommy Anthony Barnett.
Not one more.
Not one more Andrew Bramwell.
Organizers said to the crowd here that this is just the start, and the hope is that the solidarity shown here will live on with the activism that needs to continue. Neil McCartney, Global News, Kingston.
Throughout the year, we covered countless COVID stories, not all of them related to the devastating illness. As seniors were forced to isolate from loved ones during the early days of the pandemic, we went to Gananoque. Mike Postovat found that not even a pandemic could break the bond between a mother and daughter.
How are you? Aw, I miss you so much.
Not an uncommon sight, Estelle Nichols standing outside her mother's room at the Carveth Care Centre in Gananoque. The subject of her affection, 88-year-old Jeanette Hudson.
We are so close. We've had our ups and downs, you know, like anybody else, but no, absolutely so close. You know, I love my mom, and I know she loves me, and yeah, we are close, that's for sure.
It was just over a week ago when Nichols couldn't make it to her mom's window, so the staff stepped in and helped out with this video.
Il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose.
She's French-Canadian background, and La Vie en Rose was one of her favorites. And that's one of the songs that she just seems to remember the words, and that's what she'll start singing, and she loves music.
Something new for Nichols and others, this orange line. Those coming to make contact with a loved one are now being asked to stay 6 feet back.
Of course, everybody worries, but it is peace of mind knowing that they're doing due diligence. They're, you know, locking it down to keep this thing out, and that's critical. It makes me as a family member feel better.
We have a lot of responsibility on our hands, and what's going on with COVID right now, it's a battle we don't know how to fight 100%. So we're trying to do everything in our measures and going above and beyond the standards to protect the people that we love, and that's our residents and our homes.
Il me l'a dit que ça durait pour la vie.
Despite barriers, music is a bond that keeps at least these loved ones connected. Mike Postovat, Global News, Gananoque.
Throughout the year, we covered stories that didn't fall into any particular category. In many cases, these are stories that made us smile. Here's a sample.
3, 2, 1, jump!
1 month into the new year, about 100 people joined in the 8th annual Polar Plunge in support of the Special Olympics, jumping into the frigid 36 Fahrenheit water at Confederation Basin.
Because you're trying to get back to the ladder as quick as possible, yes. And it's like slow motion. You're just like, oh my God, get me the ladder.
A different kind of challenge in the water as the 5-mile wooden lighthouse west of Brockville was rebuilt 2 years after it was destroyed by lightning.
It was the last of 9 of these British lighthouses between Kingston and Brockville, and so people wanted to see it stay there forever.
Retired Senator Bob Runciman led the $200,000 fundraising campaign. As the pandemic started to take hold, stories of hope and help emerged, like the flour guy, Paul Carney, who donated and delivered flour and yeast, which was in short supply, to help local residents pass the time baking. And how about the candy slide man? Kingston plumber Dan Vokey installed dozens of homemade chutes made of plastic plumber's pipe for residents to safely deliver the treats to kids on Halloween.
We expected sort of like a warm response, but you know, when I woke up on like a Sunday morning and my phone was literally on fire with emails and Facebook responses.
The City of Kingston boosted spirits heading into the winter of COVID, installing these signs near City Hall, a heart and love sign to brighten your mood. Seniors at Kingsdale Retirement Home got their own personal concert by country singer Mark McDonald from Ambush. He sang for them outside while most of them watched from inside.
There's already folks in the windows. They've made signs for me. They call me Cowboy Mark. Usually I'm in a band called Ambush, but today I'm Cowboy Mark, and I'm glad to be here.
Overhead, the Snowbirds performed a fly past in May aimed at boosting morale. Operation Inspiration did just that.
I love seeing them. Actually, we were talking about, we always get tears in our eyes when we see them fly by.
Mandatory face coverings suddenly became fashionable and a source of fundraising for some, like these reusable non-medical cloth masks with courage on them, courtesy of the Tragically Hip, to raise money for musicians struggling during the pandemic. A good year to retire. Just ask Chuck Norris.
I don't step on toes, I step on necks.
No, not that one.
The actor's real name is Carlos Ray Norris.
The real Chuck Norris, who worked 45 years as manager and bartender of the Portsmouth Tavern, called it quits, admired by many of the tavern's regulars, including Bryan Adams. No, not that Bryan Adams.
You can sit down and hold a conversation with anyone about pretty well anything. And most of his conversations are down to earth.
Stay with us as we reveal the top story of 2020. Among the many COVID-related stories, there was one in particular that changed the way we look and the way we coped.
Welcome back to our Global Kingston year-end special report. We are counting down the top stories in southeastern Ontario during the past year, plus others of notable mention.
This next story stretched over several months and was partly spawned by the pandemic. A tent city sprang up in Kingston's Bell Park last spring, putting a spotlight on the city's homeless problem. By summer's end, the city moved to evict the campers and to open a care hub to help them find support services. Craig Krause has our number 2 story of the year.
For over 4 months, people have called the parking lot here at Bell Park home. And over that time, the City of Kingston has set several deadlines to clear the encampment, but those have come and gone. Nearly a month since the latest deadline, the City of Kingston acted, removing everyone on site and their belongings.
A city worker telling me that we choose to live this way, when I asked them to wait until even a couple hours so the people who aren't here can get their belongings. They don't even know what's going on.
The city says it notified the campers before and after the July 31st deadline that it was illegal to live on the property after this date, saying, quote, municipal staff and a team of community partners have worked to support the people at the encampment and assist them in transitioning. The city set up Artillery Park as an integrated care hub for the campers at the end of July as an alternative to Bell Park, but City Councillor Jim Neal says that move has had its own challenges.
I don't think Artillery Park is working at all. And what we've done is created 2 areas of frustration.
This is a sad day in our community.
Mutual Aid Cataraqui was also at Bell Park Tuesday, a group that has been advocating for the campers.
We have a situation where our city, all of us, are spending a great deal of money in terms of bylaw presence, in terms of police presence, in terms of physical equipment to make the lives of the people with the most difficult situation in our community more difficult.
As for what's next for the campers, well, the City of Kingston tells me that they have moved all of their belongings to Artillery Park and Cook's Arena and are offering free transportation for them to come pick it up. Craig Krause, Global News, Kingston.
Our top story of the year is coming up. First, we want to shine a light on the region's top local sports story of 2020. COVID-19 played havoc with the sports world this year, but just before the pandemic hit Canada hard, they were able to complete the Tim Hortons Brier at the Leon Centre. Mike Postovic covered the championship game.
Underneath them. It is a packed Leon Centre to witness the final. The title tilt featured Alberta's Brendan Botcher foursome against Brad Gushu and his rink from Newfoundland and Labrador. The score is tied at 1 in the third end when Gushu with the hammer does this.
Yep. Final stone. Yes. Right now sending the one.
Whoa. Whoa. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Nichols.
Whoa. Whoa.
All on its own. Bang, bang. Look out. There it is.
Newfoundland and Labrador go up 4-1. Botcher and his rink close the gap to 4-2, but this single in the 6th makes it 5-2. Let's head to the 10th, and Team Gushu is ahead 6-3.
Champion of 17. Champion of 18. With his final stone, the arms go up. And Gushue is good again.
Newfoundland and Labrador win it 7-3. That is Gushue's third Brier title.
You know, once we went up 4-1, it was for us, you know, it felt like we had all the momentum then, and it was just a matter of not taking the foot off the gas, and we didn't do it. We kept it down and forced them to make some shots. We never took any crazy chances and really never got in any situations where we were in a lot of troubles.
We did everything we needed to do to be ready. We just didn't come out and play our best. He played great. We gave him some pretty easy shots. I just think me and the guys needed to shoot a little bit better.
The setup, the venue, it was packed. Fans were loud. You come into the event walking out and everyone's cheering. That's what you want. You want you want enthusiastic fans. Kingston did an unbelievable job. We're so happy that we were a part of it.
Well, now it's time for our top newsmaker of 2020. It's about the first large COVID-19 outbreak in Kingston that led to mandatory masks. Craig Krause covered the nail salon outbreak that left about 30 people with the virus and forced hundreds more to quarantine and get tested. Public Health responded with a safety order that remains in place to this day.
The standard whereby anyone going out in public should have a mask with them.
It's a big deal and is a community-wide first in southeastern Ontario since the pandemic began. Kingston Area Public Health announcing a region-wide mandatory mask order.
Now, as a result of what has happened in our community, we've written an order to ensure that hand hygiene products are accessible at the entry and exit to any of these facilities. As well, anyone entering them must now wear a mask.
A decision made public Friday afternoon after the region saw a surge in cases this week, all linked to a Kingston nail salon. Now, 16 active cases, the most since March, forcing Public Health to track down those who may have come in contact with customers or employees of the salon.
Those 500 people have been asked to quarantine themselves, to monitor for symptoms from 14 days from the visit that they had at that facility on Gardner's Road.
I'm so sorry. I'm apologize to the community and when it's happened.
Moore said the region dodged a bullet by catching the outbreak early.
I want to emphasize that the workers in that establishment, even though there were 6 out of 10 that tested positive, did have masks on. They did wash their hands, perhaps not for the right length of time, but they were washing their hands between clients.
And Dr. Moore says that hand washing might have helped keep the virus away from the many clients that were seen at the salon. And as for the 27 people who did test positive, Public Health says many are showing minimal symptoms and none have required hospital attention.
What it shows is the system's working.
Premier Doug Ford addressing the outbreak in Kingston, saying that this shows contact tracing by local health units is working, something the mayor of Kingston, Brian Patterson, echoed.
It's a wake-up call to the community. That we still have to follow all of the public health guidelines and rules in place.
As for the consequences for not wearing a mask inside of an indoor business or any other indoor space, Dr. Moore says a fine could reach as high as $5,000. Craig Krause, Global News, Kingston.
And of course, we will continue following the pandemic stories and the vaccine rollout, bringing hope for the new year.
That's a look at some of the people, places, and events making headlines across our region in 2020.
We wish you a safe and happy new year. Thanks for watching this Global Kingston News Special. Good night.
Hair and makeup by Luce Hair Studio with 3 locations, downtown, Kingston East, and Kingston West. Vehicle detailing provided by Auto Salon.